Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-host, Shannon Lane Newmark, Matthew Shapiro Obermeyer, and Frank Hennessy, Premier Planning Group. Shannon, can you give us a rundown on who we have on the show with us today, please?
Sure, Herb. We have a great lineup today. We'll be starting off with Donna Dorzinski, President and CEO of Just-in-Time GCP, followed by Rob Gilfillan, President of Cenero. Then we'll have Christine Meyer, President of Battaglia Associates, and we'll be wrapping up today with Mark Sanderson, Principal of DIGSAU.
Let's get to know our first guest, Donna Dorozinsky, President and CEO of Just-in-Time GCP. Donna, what is Just-in-Time GCP?
We are a business and technology services company that works with biotech and pharma companies in helping them manage the processes and documentation that gets drugs approved.
And how did you get a job with this company?
I started the business.
And how large or how small is the team?
We have 80 employees that work throughout the United States.
And where you're from originally, how many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
I'm from Willow Grove outside of Philadelphia. I am the oldest. I have a younger sister, and then I have 3 cousins that were involved young in my life.
So you grew up with 3 cousins. You were very close with your 3 cousins, you told us earlier, in the green room, and your sister. What was the effect of you growing up with your 3 cousins very close by and your sister on who you are nowadays in the business?
It really helped me understand the importance of family.
Is there some sort of a saying in the business that you use that reflects the family values?
Yes, we have a culture of family first. We have 3 families. Our families outside of work, our families at Just-in-Time GCP, and then our clients. Our clients are part of our family as well.
And when you were a kid, 8 to 14 years old, what kind of stuff were you up to? What did that list look like?
So I did dance. I did play a lot of different instruments, and I worked in my mom's business.
You give me that again. You danced?
I did dance. I played sports, and I worked in my mom's business.
And all right, Matthew, you want to give me a hand?
Yeah, Donna, you just talked about your mom's business. How old were you when your mom started that business?
I was 12.
And was that like an easy thing for her to do?
No, it was not an easy thing. She and my aunt decided that they wanted to open a gift shop at a time where women weren't able to get funding the way we can today. And they went to a lot of banks to try and get the money to do the business, and they did it on their own. So I'm really proud of them.
And I'm curious because it's clear to me how big a role family played in your life. But while your mom was out there starting this own business, that had to take her away from the family. Tell me how she balanced that and what you saw of that as a kid.
Yeah, no, she really managed to do it all. She was there for all of us, homeroom mom and things like that, but she worked hard. She worked long hours, and we were all part of the business, right? My sister and I both worked in the business, and so that made family time work time.
How young were you when you were making people part of it?
As far as the part of the business, my sister and I were 12 and 8.
No, how young were you when you personally were making people part of things? Because that's so much what you are, right?
Yeah, so I guess always, right? Being the oldest, it was always like family things. And then as I had a family myself, family's just always been super important. My kids, and making sure that, everybody was included.
And what do you do to make everybody part of it at Just-in-Time?
I think communication is really important. I think making sure that leadership understands the values, our core values. I talk a lot about family. I talk a lot about balance. I think that, just really making sure that people feel like they're valued and that they're an important part. People are my asset, right? So they need to feel like they're part of the business.
Frank?
One last thing about your mom, Donna. What were you doing? It was a gift shop she owned, correct?
It was, yeah.
And what were you doing at the gift shop?
So we emptied boxes, we wrapped gifts, we sold, we worked behind the counter. We really did whatever we needed to do. We vacuumed before we closed tonight. We had to vacuum, dusted, wiped down. Yeah.
And you also remember details such as your mom arranging financing for the business, correct?
Yeah. So, businesses had to get funding, and they didn't want their husbands to sign for them, right? Women need to be independent.
So that's a lot of experience for a teenager. Now, obviously, your mom had influence on you. Tell us about your dad. What did he do for a living?
Yeah, my dad. So he was a hospital consultant, which I think is where I got the consulting piece from. And he also worked in my mom's shop. He actually made pewter. So we were all together.
And you have a healthcare background?
I do. I'm a nurse. I went to college to be a nurse.
And so was that instilled in you from your father?
So I think what was instilled on me is that you should do what you want to do. You should follow what you like. And I really enjoyed nursing and I wanted to help people, right? That was my message that I had. And I enjoyed that part as well.
So tell me, how do the details of the gift shop and doing what you want to do and becoming a nurse, how do those childhood experiences help you organize scientists, regulators, and operations today?
Yeah. So, when you run a business, there's compliance, right? There's rules. You have to follow rules. And being a nurse, I think being an ER nurse taught me how to make my decisions quickly. And I think being decisive as a leader is really important, right? Being able to make the quick decisions, gather your data, make decisions. So I think all of those things kind of pulled together to make me a business leader.
Mm-hmm. Shannon?
In the green room, you mentioned that you were editor of the yearbook. What was your role as editor of the yearbook?
So my role was pretty much everything, right? Like you have to do everything. We did the layouts, we did the photography, we scheduled the events. I didn't write because they told me I couldn't write, so I wasn't a very good writer. But I learned quickly that anybody can be a good writer because when I went to college, that was not an acceptable answer. And today I do a lot of writing in my work. And I think the lesson I learned is that you can do anything you want to do. You just have to do it, right? You have to learn to do it and make yourself do it.
So looking back, being told as your editor of the yearbook that you can't write, what did that do to you at the time?
Yeah, so I think that when somebody tells me I can't do something, I probably prove them wrong. Somebody once told me you can't have it all. And I said, well, watch me. You may not have it all at the same time, but you can have it all. And I think that's what really motivated me to push and to achieve.
And how does that show up nowadays in the way you're building your team?
Yeah, so we were 13 people in 2018 and we're 80 people today. And so every time somebody says to me, well, you can't do this, I think, well, just watch me. So I think that relying on the culture and making sure that my employees understand that they're valued, I think is what will allow us to continue to grow and succeed. And I'm motivated by the work we do, right? Bringing medicines to patients, right? I started as a nurse, so it kind of just makes sense that we can just have a bigger impact by the work that we do.
Earlier, when we were speaking in the green room, I asked you, what else we should know about you. And you told me something about the word balance. What was that all about?
Yeah, so balance is one of our core values. And for balance, to me, it's not about having a 50-50 split or a 70-70 split, right? It's about being 100% in the moment for what you're doing. So if you're with your family, you got to be all in on what you're doing in that moment. And when you're working, you need to be all in. And so it's about being in the moment, living in the moment and staying focused on what you're doing at that time.
Mm-hmm. So the fact that you had a lot of different interests as a kid sort of like planted the seeds for you to be the master juggler nowadays as a mom, a founder and CEO of this business and all the other interests. Am I seeing that correctly?
Yeah. So they tease me a lot. I thrive on chaos, right? I don't know whether it was my ER background or just having to be able to do a lot of different activities. I've learned to prioritize and get rid of what you can't do and focus on what you can do.
Well, how do you manage to get all this stuff done? I guess your real mastery is the understanding of other people and who's really great at doing what.
Yeah, so I'm not good at everything. I know that. And I think that's part of being a good leader, right? Being self-aware, recognizing what you do well and what you don't. And so what I try to do is I have a leadership team that does the things well that I don't. My husband's our CFO because he does money well. I have a VP of business and technology because he gets the technology side. My services person is the best manager ever. So it's really about knowing what you do well and leveraging that and then finding people who do things that you don't do well.
So you're willing to admit that you're not Little Miss Perfect?
Oh, yeah. I've been in that for a really long time. Yes.
Uh-huh. Co-host, who's got the next question?
How do you get 80 employees to buy into the concept of family? And why is that important in business?
So I started my business because I had been doing the corporate climb and I couldn't be a mom to a 5-year-old and an 18-month-old and still do it well. And so I started because I wanted to be able to do both, right? And so then I hired people that wanted to do both as well, right? So my company is made up of a lot of women and men who understand the priority of family and get this concept of they want to do work, they want to grow their careers, they don't want to put their career on hold because of family events or life events. And so creating creating a company where people know that they're supported to do what they need to do, right? And when COVID hit, we didn't need to swing to a virtual world because we're a virtual company. And we understood
Donna,
that
what is the website address for this organization known as Just in Time GCP? What's your website?
JustInTimeGCP.com.
JustInTimeGCP.com. We've been speaking with Donna Dorzinski, who is President and CEO of Just in Time GCP here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. That's ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Back in a moment, right after this quick break. You now can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Simply visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your advisors. Yes, this radio and online social media exposure is free and quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. I'd like to introduce Rob Gilfillan, president of Cenero. Rob, what is Cenero? What are you guys doing?
Cenero designs, builds, and services audiovisual solutions and conferencing solutions for businesses.
And how large or how small is the team?
We're 205 employees.
And how'd you get a job with this company?
I'm an equal co-founder back in 1999.
And where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
Sure. From Delaware County, Pennsylvania. I have one younger sister, so I'm the oldest.
Mm-hmm. And 8 to 14 years old, what kind of stuff were you up to? What were you doing as a kid?
I had a variety of interests, tennis, swimming, soccer, always worked, dragging lawnmowers around and whatnot around the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Shannon, want to give me a hand?
Rob, in the green room, when you mentioned the list of sports you played as a kid, you said that you didn't excel at any of them. Yet in soccer, you were the goalie, and swimming, you were a captain. Tell us more about that.
Sure. So goalie by its nature, you end up running an entire defense, and you guide the team, and you're kind of a hero or a zero at the games, whether you win or lose. And I was captain of the swim team. It's a leadership role. I was active in a number of relay teams and things like that, but I was never the best, but I was there motivating other people.
So to not excel at any of them, as you said, but then play such important roles on both of those teams, I'm curious how that relates to the way you're building your team nowadays.
Sure. I have a lot of diverse interests. I like kind of putting my hands in a lot of different things. I want to understand a lot of different things. I think that makes you appreciate a lot of the maybe challenges and things that people go through in their various roles in different departments.
Mm-hmm. Matthew?
Rob, how young were you when you got involved in your dad's business?
I literally can remember being 2 or 3 and being drugged to his office.
Tell me some more about that. 2 or 3 and going to work with your dad. Sure.
So I will say my father did not have a lot of balance in his life. Work was pretty much 70% of what he did. I remember him always be working. He went to work every single weekend. And at times where my mother had things to do, I'd get drugged to the office and watch him go to work pretty much.
What did he do? What was the business you were observing?
He had a manufacturer rep firm for the electronics industry.
Was that like a solid foundation, stable job?
No, as I mentioned earlier, the one thing I do remember my father stating is a rep firm is a business built on a foundation of sand. So one day you're flying high, the next day a manufacturer pulls a line and you're scrounging for pennies.
And you said while you were growing up, there really were some difficult times. What did you learn from that?
I think showing that my father can persevere through a lot of things. Our family went through bankruptcy. We sheriff sold the house when I was in high school. And I think I learned a lot of what not to do and understand that, look, life isn't fair. And 90% is how you respond, not what happens to you.
So like when you go through difficult times leading Cenero, what do you hear your dad saying to you?
Never give up. Learn from the experience and fail forward.
Mr. Frank?
So, Rob, you said as a young teenager, you were dragging lawnmowers around the neighborhood. What were you doing? Repairing lawnmowers or cutting lawns, or what was that all about?
Kind of everything. We had an old Snapper lawnmower that didn't run, and I learned to put a new spark plug in it and new points and got it running, and went up and down the neighborhood and handed out flyers to try to get business. And when they never called me, I walked around the neighborhood, knocked on the door, and asked them why they didn't call me.
So how many lawns did you end up cutting, landscaping?
When I was a kid, like 11 and 12, it was only a handful, maybe 6 or 7. But I did it on and off throughout high school and actually into my first couple years in college. And I got up to about 24 or 30 different lawn clients that we were taking care of.
All by yourself, or did you have employees?
Well, by employee, it was really a friend at the time that needed money and I needed help. So I just kind of drag him in and we'd split whatever work we did.
But that's substantial. You're observing your father's business and you're trying to figure out how to fix a lawnmower, how to get business, how to satisfy your customers. How did that help you build a foundation of 205 employees at Cenero?
It's a lot of problem solving. Most of the people you're doing work for hire you because they don't want to do it or they don't know how to do it. And, there was no Google back then. You just kind of had to figure it out. I never worked for another company doing any landscaping or cutting beds or anything. And it might not sound like a lot now, but when you're a kid, it's a lot to learn. So you just kind of figure it out and learn by trial and error.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned when you were younger that there were a lot of challenges and you had to sort things out and learn from them. And tell us more about that, what kind of stuff you went through and how that's helped you nowadays.
It was really, just from watching my father and his business, I learned a lot of what not to do. So what's kind of nice about it is, like they always say, if you start a business second time, you're not starting from zero, you're starting from learning from those old experiences. I got to watch my father go through a lot of these experiences. So I felt like I learned a lot from that. So when I actually started a company, I had all that knowledge of what not to do along the way.
Mm-hmm. Now, you say you started it with an equal partner, and you made it a point to talk about equal, but isn't it dangerous starting a business with a partner, let alone an equal partner?
I always say so I knew my business partner for about 6 months before we decided to buy the company that we'd worked for because the angel investor pulled out. I refer to it as a forced marriage without the courting. And for the first 6 years, I probably spent a lot more time with my business partner than I did my family. And we have very complementary skill sets, and it just worked out for us.
So you're comfortable sharing and trusting and sharing, aren't you?
Correct. We're both faith-based individuals, and we're not having to second guess each other. We trust each other to do their job.
Matthew?
What do you bring to work from your mom every day, Rob?
My mother wasn't involved in the business. She didn't understand the business, but I tell my kids there are 3 things you need to concentrate or focus on growing up: discipline, passion, and gratitude. And my mom brought a lot of gratitude.
Tell me more about gratitude and what that means to you.
I think it helps give you perspective. It's very easy for everyone to focus on what's ahead of you, as opposed to being thankful for what you have, and gives you good perspective to live your life reasonably. So,
how young were you when your mother taught you gratitude?
I don't think she really thought she was teaching it to me. It just kind of happened by watching her. My mom is a very upbeat person. She's a little nuts, but she is always very thankful for the people around her and the things that she has.
So are you more like your mom or your dad?
I'm a good mix of both of them.
Explain that to me.
I think I've got my mom, I'm actually the introvert in our family, and I'm a pretty outgoing guy. My dad was an introvert. So I got my mom's, I'll say, extrovertedness, and I got my father's thoughtfulness. How about that?
And you got a work ethic too. You told us in the green room you'll outwork anyone. Tell me about that.
Yeah, someone asked me this actually several weeks ago, like, where did you get your work ethic from? And I said, it's pure fear. Because, at 17 years old, basically my sister and I were kind of on our own, and there was no safety net. So it's actually something that I got to step back a little bit, because I will keep working because I've always done it. And I will outwork anybody just because I don't want to fail.
Mm-hmm. Because you don't want to fail. But you're at the point you could sell a business and retire. Why don't you?
Role model for my kids primarily, role model for employees. I think one thing that's interesting, I've gone through, 01, 08, the most recent business challenges, which we could spend 15 hours talking about those. Mm-hmm. Businesses get soft when times are good, and they get strong when times are hard. And, I think it's good to keep driving forward.
What is the website address of this organization known as Cenero?
Cenero, that's CENERO.com.
We've been speaking with Rob Gilfillan, president of Cenero, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com. We will be back in a moment right after this quick break. Don't go away. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Christine Meyer, president of Battaglia Associates. Christine, what is Battaglia Associates? What are you guys doing?
We're a general contractor, a civil contractor, and we're focused in the industrial and the utility markets.
Mm-hmm. How large or how small is the team?
Well, in the office, we're about 15, and then in the field, we're up 45 to 50.
Mm-hmm. And how'd you get a job with this company?
You can apply.
How did you get a job with this company?
How did I? I started it.
Oh, you started the business. And where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
From Wilmington, Delaware. I'm the oldest of two. I have a younger sister.
Right. Younger sister. And 8 to 14, what kind of stuff were you up to? What kind of things were you doing as a kid?
I played basketball. I played softball. I was in the Scouts. I was running around with a lot of cousins, a lot of younger cousins. So I did some babysitting with them, although not the biggest fan of babysitting. So. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned in the green room that you were the oldest of all your cousins.
Yeah.
And how'd that affect your relationship with your cousins?
Well, they were significantly younger. So, they were always coming to me. I was the one that took them to the concert, convinced mom to let them go. Or I was the one, if they had a problem or trouble, come to me, talk to me, see if I could help them work their way out of it, weasel their way out of it.
So you were the one that everybody came to talk to. You were in the middle of everything, trying to help everybody all the time. Am I correct about that?
Yeah.
What's that have to do with your role as the president of Battaglia Associates, the fact that you were in the middle of everything, you knew everything that was going on, trying to help everybody all the time?
Most of the time, I feel like everyone's mom, so I feel like I'm trying to fix their problems too now, and being able to put fires out when it's necessary, things like that. Okay,
so we have a new title. It's Christine Meyer, everyone's mom, Battaglia Associates. Let's see, Frank, why don't you give me a hand, please?
So, Christine, tell us about Dad. What did he do for a living?
My dad actually started Battaglia Electric, which was an electrical contracting company, and he really came from nothing. So, I really admired his hard work ethic and his never giving up and believing in himself.
And I think you said he was a union electrician before he started the business?
Local 313.
Wow. So he had a lot riding on him, a lot of people counting on him. What did it say to you that he took the risk to go from a safe and secure job to running a business?
I think because he had such a hard work ethic and it was kind of like not even a thought that he wouldn't succeed. He just worked really hard.
So did you learn from him more about the mechanical aspects of the trade or more about running a business?
I really learned more learning the business. I learned, dealing with putting the fires out, that there wasn't a challenge that was too big.
So tell us, where does the confidence come from so that your dad could have enough confidence to start his own business and that you as a female could start a business in the construction industry? Where does that all come from?
I think that's your faith in God, your faith in your team, your faith in yourself, and each other,
Well, tell me more. What do you mean faith, and how does that translate to being successful in business?
I think if you know that there's a higher power, first of all, I give everything to God, but knowing that you believe in your team and you believe in their efforts and their talent and having faith in their abilities, that translates and they start to believe in themselves.
So they feel your confidence.
Right. When you have a lot of people counting on you all the time, you really need to have faith in each other so that you can, teamwork's everything for us.
Matthew?
Hey, Christine, you're everyone's mom, but tell me about your mom.
My mom was awesome. My mom helped my father start the company, work part-time while he was starting it, and then was, doing all the paperwork and at home, working out of the kitchen when it was first in our home. And she also had a very, very significant work. She had a significant impact on my work ethic.
So are you more like your mom or your dad?
I think I'm more like my mom. My dad would say him, but definitely more like my mom.
Why are you more like your mom?
Just because I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done on the back end. It doesn't matter. I don't need to be standing out front. I don't need to be, in the spotlight. I think that she was the one that really she did all the paperwork, she did all the back end stuff.
And I'm curious, you had this model of your parents running a business together, and now you're running a business with your sister. The whole world says, don't go into business with family, but you guys seem to have it. What's the secret sauce to being in business with your family?
I don't know that there's a secret sauce, but, there's rules that you put in play. I think that there's boundaries you respect. And when you have problems, it's just communicating them out, getting everything out on the table and hashing it out.
And is that does that go beyond the family to the rest of the business too?
It does. It's a community, we are a family, we're a family organization. We get involved in everyone's families. We know about everything that's going on with everybody in the company because we're like that. And our family is all in here and intertwined.
Mm-hmm. So. Shannon?
Christine, when you were growing up, it sounds like a lot of people looked up to you. I'm curious, who did you look up to when you were growing up?
My mom and dad. My dad's work ethic. My mom's willing to do anything, get the job done.
And tell us more about that. When you were a kid, what did it mean to you to see your dad's work ethic and to see your mom, her willingness to get the job done? What did that mean?
Well, because my father really came from nothing, and it meant everything to me to see my at the time my last name on the side of a building, that put the lights in here, installed lighting in there, and when you drove by, I was so proud of him and what he accomplished and his team. And knowing that my mom was back there, just sitting there quietly saying nothing, and that she would help me, she helped get it done. She was the one on the backside getting everything done for him.
And what did seeing both of your parents, the hard work that they put in back then, how does that show up nowadays in what you're doing and building your team?
Well, that balance that my parents had between home, my parents didn't miss a game, in addition to all that, they still were there for everything. So, having a balance is really important. And I think that when I hire someone, I want to see that they have that balance, that their family is just as important to them as their work. It really, because if they're all work, I know they're going to burn out. And if they're just, all at home all the time, and then they're not focused on what's going on in here. So I'm looking for that as well. And I'm going to, be right there with them, cheering when their kids win the game. And it is a big deal to me.
Earlier when we were speaking, you told me that there's you're seeing a lot of opportunity for folks. What are you talking about?
Well, I think that everyone needs to know that construction is an option, not just men. I think women need to know it's an option, not just, they don't have to be a teacher. They don't have to be a nurse. They can go into construction. They can go into project management. They can go into a trade. That is just as equally, available to them as it is to men. You only see 5% women in this industry. And, I didn't start really in this industry. I wanted to go into marketing and real estate when I was young. I graduated St. Joseph's University and was going to go into marketing and take on the world. And then, it was 92. So anybody remembers that, this recession. Then when I decided to go into real estate in 2007, that fell apart. And I ended up here, and I love it. It's a great industry for women.
So you take a lot of responsibility. You're like, we joking earlier, you're like the master mother to everybody. On the other hand, it certainly sounds like you trust people and you give them their opportunity to succeed. And that's one of the reasons you asked that you were able to make some mention on the air about this, because you do have opportunities for people. So your organization is like the kind of organization where somebody can really sink their teeth into a career, it sounds like.
I hope so. That's what we're aiming for. It goes back to faith and having faith in other people.
Going back to faith and having faith in other people. And you mentioned that your husband runs a related business as well. Is that so?
Yeah, he works downstairs. I have the upstairs, he has downstairs. We can't be on the same floor, I see him enough. So I don't want to work with him. But, we do work together sometimes on jobs, a lot of times on jobs. If I need an electrical contractor, that's where I'm going to go. Although I have used others, it's just not a good dinner. That I hired someone else instead of. So,
what's the website address for this organization known as Battaglia Associates?
It's battagassoc.com, BATTAGASSOC.com.
Let me have that one more time.
It's battagassoc.com, BATTAGASSOC.com.
We've been speaking with Christine Meyer, president of Battaglia Associates, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Back in a moment, right after this quick break.
Recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, Executive Leaders Radio. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Simply visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable. Yes, this radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors for free exposure.
We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Mark Sanderson, principal of DIGSAU. Mark, what is DIGSAU? What are you guys doing?
DIGSAU is a 50-person design firm located in Center City, Philadelphia. We're focused on architecture, planning, and urbanism.
Where you're from originally? How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
Grew up outside of Philadelphia in the Valley Forge area. I'm the youngest of three, older sister, older brother.
And 8 to 14, what kind of stuff were you doing?
Probably a classic list: sports, soccer, tennis, baseball, basketball, lots of odd jobs, landscaping, lawn mowing, painting, and then probably in free time puzzles and that sort of thing.
What was the last part?
Puzzles and problem solving, I guess.
And you mentioned that in the neighborhood there were about 20 kids. What was your relationship, or what was your role with the 20 kids in the neighborhood?
I was probably someone who would be considered a floater in and out of each of the different groups, and kind of having different roles in each of those groups.
What did your ability or role as a floater with the neighborhood kids, what's that have to do with your role as principal at DIGSAU?
The field of architecture is one that touches on all sorts of different aspects of society, whether it's financial or construction, the specifics and technical aspects of that, working with the problems of our clients and their specific needs. So you have to be able to communicate on lots of different levels.
Yeah, I can see that. Frank, give me a hand, please.
So, Mark, sports were important to you growing up. What was your favorite sport?
I would say soccer.
Why soccer?
It's probably the one that I maybe excelled at a little bit more than others, but I was a midfielder, and that's a role that kind of puts you right in the center of the action, but you have to do a lot of different things and help out on both ends of the field.
Are you still involved with soccer?
I am a bit. I have coached youth soccer for my kids.
Do you have a coaching philosophy you can share with us?
Oh, I think it would be to have fun would be the key philosophy, because I'm certainly have a competitive streak, but I think it's important that those involved in it are able to get as much as they can out of it and excel on their own terms.
So I got to ask you, because soccer can be a technical sport. How does playing and coaching soccer help you solve problems with respect to the vision, the design, the final implementation of architecture?
I think that's how I look at the world and approach the world, is that, you see an obstacle or a problem or a way to make it better. And that's very much, you might see it on a soccer field, or you might see it at any part of your life. And you certainly, that's the world of architecture, where clients come, and typically if they're asking for a remodel or a new building, they're trying to solve an issue or a problem of their own.
Shannon?
Mark, at DIGSAU, you guys are very involved in the community and do a lot of giving back. I'm curious, how young were you when you first started giving back, or when that first became important?
I think that was something that I observed with my mom and what she used to do in her involvement with the community. She was a stay-at-home mother, but stayed very, very busy and was involved in all sorts of community organizations, PTA, et cetera. And so I saw that, and my values were shaped by that.
And did you ever do anything with her? Did she bring you along for any of this?
She did. I was the youngest, so I kind of got brought along to a lot of different events and activities. And she used to use kind of my youth and to go out and help sell various baked goods and things in the neighborhood.
And watching your mom, put an importance on this idea of giving back, what did you learn from that experience that you carry with you nowadays?
I think it's just an important part of the balance. As a business leader, it's something you're certainly trying to grow your business and serve the people who are your clients. But certainly in the field of architecture, and probably any business, there's a broader set of goals and your involvement and connection to the community.
Mr. Matthew.
Mark, how young were you when you were interested in building?
Probably from the earliest age. Certainly started with getting Legos and model sets and that sort of thing as a kid.
Why did Legos appeal to you?
Probably a theme I keep coming back on, which is the problem solving, but it's a puzzle. It's something you have to figure out how to put together, how it goes together. And then after you work that through a particular, Lego set, then, you get to take it apart and recreate different things with other sets. So I think that combination was really attractive to me.
So that's funny to me, because when I had my Lego sets, I built what you were supposed to build, and I never went beyond that. So I'm curious, you're young, you're playing with Legos, you're going beyond what you're supposed to build, creating these new things, bringing your imagination to reality. When you got to the end of your project, you built something not on the box. What did you do? What did you think? How did you look at what you built?
Well, I think that's the beauty of Legos, is that you could kind of look at it for a while and then build on it or change it or make it better. And so that was kind of the aspect of those Legos that were really, I think, exciting for me as a kid.
And does that have an analog to what you're doing now, right? The Legos to architecture is obvious, but do you still kind of have that process where you look at it at the end with the customer, and how does that go? The client.
I think that's the key and the fundamentals of architecture is that you're trying to make things better for your client, but also it's a building, so it interacts with the rest of the world and the community. And so trying to figure out a way to get the most out of that investment and those needs and the way that it might be better and do more.
So of all the things that you've worked on in your career, do you have like a favorite?
I think the first project that our firm took on was probably our favorite and our most formative. It was for an at-risk youth foundation, nonprofit that had to build their own building and used the youth and scrap materials to create their own building. And so that kind of aspect of problem solving and working with low skill or no skill labor to create something that has a lot of integrity and really represented them was probably our most exciting and favorite project to date.
That's fascinating. So when you finished that project with those kids and with those materials and you went into that building, what did you feel?
I think what I like the most and what we feel the most is how much ownership they had of it. And it was not about us and it was about them. And that's, I think, the aspect of our most successful projects are when the client actually feels like they designed it and they have full ownership of it. So that's the part that I think is the most satisfying.
That's crazy to me. You start your own firm. Here's your first project. It's this great project to help kids, and you walk into it and it's all about them, not about you. Where does that humility come from?
I think that probably comes from my parents. And I think that's the part about architecture is it's really, in the end, our philosophy and as a firm is it's not about us, but it's really trying to make incredible designs that represent our clients' needs rather than our kind of design, our own design agenda.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier when we were getting to know each other that you really like puzzles. What was this thing about puzzles? What's the connection to architecture? What's the connection to what you do nowadays? What's that all about?
I think that's where I find I get lost in architecture when there's a problem on the table. And I would say that the puzzle or trying to figure something out. And that's, I would venture to guess that that's true of all of the other interviewees today, is that there's problems that you always have to solve, that you always have to work and work on. And so that kind of solving puzzles, working things out, finding the right solution is something that is just a daily part of our profession.
So even though it says here you happen to be a principal with DIGSAU, you've got a lot of dimensions to your job. It's business, it's finance, it's architecture, it's client relations, it's the team relations. You're doing a lot of different, it's all one big puzzle, isn't it?
It is. It's the most exciting part about our business.
What's the website address for DIGSAU?
DIGSAU.com, DIGSAU.com.
We've been speaking with Mark Sanderson, principal of DIGSAU, here on Executive Leaders Radio. And Shannon, can you give us a rundown on who we've had on the air today, please?
Sure, Herb. We had a great show today. We started off with Donna Dorzinski, President and CEO of Just in Time GCP, followed by Rob Gilfillan, President of Cenero. Then we had Christine Meyer, President of Battaglia Associates. And just now we wrapped up with Mark Sanderson, Principal of DIGSAU.
I would like to thank my co-hosts, including Shannon Lane Newmark, Matthew Shapiro, Obermeyer, and Frank Hennessy, Premier Planning Group, for giving me a hand structuring the questions. Hope you're providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, it's executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, thank you for joining us today. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.